Welcome to ANSA McAL. My name is Nixon Gangu. I'm the Group HSSE Manager. ANSA McAL is committed to safe working practices and safe working environment. It is the responsibility of all contractors and their employees to comply with the safety and security policies and procedures that ANSA McAL has established. It is our obligation to make safety and security a way of life and the workplace accident-free. ANSA McAL recognizes its responsibility to ensuring that industry health and safety standards, as well as all legislative requirements, are met. We will ensure our responsibilities through the provisions of adequate facilities, equipment, and procedures. We fully understand the risks and have implemented work methods to reduce risks by practicing those standards every day and by listening to you about safety concerns. ANSA McAL will endeavor to make sure everyone works safely and that you return home each day without injury and incident. Welcome to ANSA McAL Group of Companies, and I hope you have a safe and enjoyable experience at ANSA McAL.
Legal Statutory Duty of Trinidad and Tobago, Occupational Safety and Health Act of 2004, amended 2006. The Occupational Safety and Health Act states the employer has general duties. Section 6.1. It shall be the duty of every employer to ensure, so far as is reasonably practicable, the safety, health, and welfare at work of all his employees. Risk Management Program. At ANSA McAL, we have a robust risk management program that includes contractor management. Risk management is the identification, analysis, and elimination and/or mitigation to an acceptable or tolerable level of those hazards, as well as the subsequent risks that threaten the viability of any organization. We use risk assessments and job hazard analysis to identify risks and ensure all hazards are controlled. Job Safety Analysis, JSA. Though a risk assessment captures all hazards and risks associated with any operations which may be carried out on behalf of the company, it will not specify which risks and hazards are applicable to the different job tasks or steps. The job safety analysis furthers the risk assessment by systematically breaking down a job into smaller steps or tasks, allowing each step or task to be hazard assessed on its own and control measures to be implemented. For this document to be completed in the correct manner, persons having experience with the job site, and equipment to be used must be present when the analysis is being conducted. Job Safety Analysis Procedure Risk Management. Determine the amount and nature of risk to which a system is exposed. Break down the job into discrete steps. Identify hazards, unsafe conditions, and unsafe work practices associated with each step. Identify possible consequences associated with each step. Determine the equipment and controls required to control each of the hazards identified. Prior to commencing work, the supervisor will obtain a JSA form and complete it step by step. This will include physical item or activity, hazards, recommended controls and reduced risk, additional controls to reduce risk. After completion of the form, the supervisor or crew leader will communicate all aspects of the risk assessment and JSA and allow employees to sign via toolbox meeting form. Job Safety Analysis, JSA. A job safety analysis, JSA, method is to be used to identify potential hazards or inadequate procedures that may be present in every job. The conducting of JSAs will be guided by the company's HSE professional, whose recommendations will be informed by the company's risk assessment, which consists of frequency of history of accidents, severity of past injuries, potential severity of possible accidents, and the extent to which there is a new job or new methods for conducting an old job. All risks and their controls must be communicated to employees prior to the commencement of the job. Contractor organization and accountabilities. All contractors must practice due diligence, which is a process that involves risk and compliance checks, investigating, review, or audit to verify facts and information about a particular subject. Contractors must properly assess the job to fine-tune the scope, to avoid scope creep, ensure ability to complete, establish fair price and expectations through negotiation, utilize job hazard analysis, which will properly assess the job process from start to finish and will assist to create comprehensive job process flowcharts, to create comprehensive JHA or JSAs, to activate mitigating safety measures, and ensure that the JHA or JSA is discussed and signed off by all relevant parties prior to starting the job. Contractors must understand liability and reduce the chances of liable claims by holding the client harmless for any accidents not due to negligence on the client's behalf, and be liable for damages caused by the contractor up to the cost of the contract. Contractors are expected to mobilize and supervise their staff daily. It is your responsibility to ensure site orientation of all workers has been completed, conduct daily toolbox talks and communicate the risks of the job to your employees, provide and ensure the use of the required PPE, secure your tools, equipment, and PPE at the end of the job, removal of all tools and equipment at the end of the job, cleanup of job site. Please remember you will not be allowed to further subcontract until this process is completed for your subcontractors.
Substance abuse. ANSA McAL has a zero tolerance policy for substance abuse while working on our compound. Our substance abuse policies aim to provide a drug-free workplace. The use, sale, transfer, or possession of illicit drugs or controlled substances without prescription is strictly prohibited at ANSA McAL. This applies to all contractors on any of our sites. Please note, any violation of a substance abuse nature will result in refusal of entry or removal from the compound and any of ANSA McAL's businesses. A drug is any substance, including alcohol, illicit drugs, or medications, whose use has the potential to change or adversely affect the way a person thinks, feels, or acts. For the purposes of this policy, drugs of concern are those that inhibit a worker's ability to perform his or her job safely and productively. Alcohol is the intoxicating agent in beverage alcohol, ethyl alcohol, or other low molecular weight alcohols, including methyl and isopropyl alcohol. An illicit drug is any drug or substance that is not legally obtainable and whose sale, possession, purchase, or transfer is restricted or prohibited by law, for example, cocaine. Please note, marijuana has been decriminalized, but we still have a zero tolerance policy for marijuana use while on our compounds. Medication is any drug obtained legally, either over the counter or through a doctor's prescription. While working on our premises or providing services to ANSA McAL, all contractors and their employees must report fit for duty and remain fit for duty. Intervene and encourage a co-worker to seek assistance before an alcohol or drug problem gets out of control and endangers himself or others. Cooperate with any investigation arising out of a violation of the substance abuse policy. ANSA McAL conducts random, with cause, and post-accident drug testing, so you may be required to undergo a substance abuse test while providing work at ANSA McAL. Smoking policy. Smoking shall not be permitted within any of the group's buildings. Smoking shall be confined to smoke areas identified at the outside front and back of the building on the ground floor. On-site emergency evacuation and emergency response plan. Contractors must follow each site's emergency response plan. Each site will have their own specific orientation that you must complete prior to the commencement of work. The plan is meant to address the management of incidents arising from technological or natural disasters at any of the group's compounds. The objective of the emergency response plan can be summarized by the safeguarding of people, safeguarding assets, orderly and timely shutdown, and the recovery of business activities. The intent is to prevent all foreseeable emergency situations that might impact the safety of employees and visitors through the implementation of a facility safety and health program and the regular training of personnel in emergency procedures. However, it is recognized that emergency situations are not totally preventable. Therefore, the emergency response plan has been developed to provide employees with procedures to follow for effective and safe actions during an emergency, including evacuation. Areas of concern are fire, emergency from neighboring businesses, bomb threats, earthquakes. First aid. In the event one of your employees becomes injured and requires first aid, please note the administration of first aid should be provided by a trained first aider and under the supervision of the contractor, subcontractor safety representative, or supervisor. A physician should be selected by the contractor and agreed prior to the commencement of project to provide medical treatment as the need arises. The subcontractor may coordinate the use of group physician through the relevant subsidiary HSE professional. Contractors' workers who sustain a critical injury will be ambulanced to the nearest health facility. Adequate records of all reported injuries and illnesses must be maintained. The report must include the time, date, nature of injury, extent, as well as the cause of injury or illness. This information should be documented on the established reporting forms. All contractors must provide adequate first aid kits and first aid trained personnel based on the assessed risk at hand. You must make provisions to have injured employees transported to a medical facility as the need arises. You are liable for all medical costs. Accident, near miss, or injury reporting. All accidents must be reported immediately to your supervisor and the company supervisor. An accident is an unplanned event that has caused an injury to a person, property damage, or an environmental problem like a spill. Accidents must be reported to get medical care and treatment as required. To put the immediate corrective action in place to prevent another, to start gathering accurate information from witnesses and affected parties, to verify if the accident occurred on the job and the exact location. Reporting accidents to the OSH authority. Employers have 4 days to report accidents to the OSH authority for accidents that are non-critical. But for critical accidents, reporting must be done immediately via phone or fax. The relevant forms must be submitted within 48 hours after the accident. The OSH agency considers critical injuries when an accident places life in jeopardy, produces unconsciousness, results in substantial loss of blood, involves the fracture of a leg or arm but not a finger or toe, involves the amputation of a leg, arm, hand, or foot but not a finger or toe, consists of burns to a major portion of the body or causes the loss of sight in any eye. ANSA McAL requires all contractors and their employees to report near misses. A near miss is an unplanned event or unsafe condition that has the potential for injury or illness to people, or damage to property or the environment. Reporting near misses assists us with preventing an accident from occurring by fixing the issue before, taking action to reduce risk, recognizing and communicating unsafe conditions and close calls, motivating and empowering the workforce to be a partner in safety. Causes of accidents can be broken into two categories: unsafe acts. An unsafe act is an act by the injured person or another person or both which caused the accident. An unsafe condition is some environmental or hazardous situation which caused the accident independent of the employees.
Right to refuse work. All employees are accountable and responsible in ensuring that the right to refuse work policy is exercised accordingly under the below circumstances to ensure the goal of an injury-free workplace can be achieved across all work locations. Contractors and their employees have a right to refuse unsafe work when work activities are imposing an immediate danger to life and health to your personnel. Also, when works to be performed is not in accordance with the agreed risk assessments, standard operating procedures, and the approved job safety analysis, thus imposing unnecessary risks to work task performer. And when action by an individual or a team is in non-compliance with industry best practice standards and outlined procedures for performing the job task. The legal standpoint of the right to refuse unsafe work is as follows. An employee may refuse to work or do particular work where he or she has the reason to believe that there is serious and imminent danger to himself or others. Any machine, plant, device, or thing he is to use or operate is likely to endanger himself or another employee. The physical condition of the workplace is likely to endanger himself, any machine, plant, device, or thing he is to use or operate, or the physical condition of the workplace in which he works is in contravention of this Act or the regulations made under it. Personal protective equipment. PPE is equipment designed to be used by an individual in order to protect or provide protection against a hazardous condition. The need for PPE and its specifications typically arises out of hazards identified in the job safety analysis, risk assessment, or the permit to work process. PPE shall be used as per ANSA McAL compound department requirements. Please remember, PPE is used as the last resort. It is used in conjunction with other methods of risk control. PPE protects only the wearer. It relies on persons using PPE and using PPE correctly at all times. Person using PPE must also know when to change PPE to ensure continuous and adequate levels of protection. PPE include apparel, full shirts that cover the shoulders and ankle-length trousers are required. Working bareback or in short pants is prohibited. Finger rings, dangling pieces of jewelry, and other hazardous personal ornamentation shall not be worn. Hair that hangs to the shoulder or below must be confined when working. Head protection approved ANSI Z89.1 non-conductive hard hats are required. Foot protection, all safety shoes must be in good repair and shall have steel-toed protection. Approved ASTM standard and must have electrical hazard protection. Eye protection. Industrial grade plastic safety glasses shall meet the ANSI Z87 standard and shall have rigid side shields attached. Dark glasses should not be worn inside covered or enclosed structures unless the operation presents eye hazards. For example, welding, cutting. Monogoggles must be worn when handling all hazardous chemicals. TNT OSH Act as amended in 2006, all persons entering an area in an industrial establishment where they are likely to be exposed to the risk of head, eye, ear, hand, or foot injury, injury from the air contaminant, or any other bodily injury shall be provided with suitable protective clothing or devices of an approved standard and adequate instructions in the use of such protective clothing or devices, and no person shall be permitted to be in any such area unless he is wearing such protective clothing or device. It is the responsibility of all contractors to ensure all of their employees have experience to perform the work at hand. All equipment must be inspected in good working order prior to the start of any working at height job. Fall protection is required for working at heights. Approved full body safety harnesses, shock absorbing lanyard with double locking snaps or lifelines as appropriate shall be worn and used when working where one could fall greater than 6 feet or more. Scaffolding. Scaffolding must be erected, inspected, and tagged that it is fit for use by a competent person or supplier prior to use. Don't overload a scaffold. You must check that the scaffold and any personal fall protection system is firmly secured. Stay off scaffolds during storms or high winds. Ladders. When using a ladder, you must ensure the ladder is unpainted, and constructed of non-conducting materials. Ladders shall comply with the 29 CFR Part 1926.1053. Only have one person on a ladder at a time. Wear shoes with clean, non-skid soles, not leather. Face the ladder when climbing up or down and hold the side rails with both hands. Carry tools up or down on a belt or with a rope or hoist, not in your hands. Safe systems of work. A safe system of work is a formal procedure which results from a systematic examination of a task in order to identify all the hazards, assess the risk, and identify safe methods and control measures to ensure that hazards are eliminated and the remaining risks are minimized. ANSA McAL uses a permit to work system to assist with its safe systems of work. The permit to work document is intended to specify the work to be done and who is authorized to do it, assess the hazards, define safe procedures, and specify the precautions to be taken. Allow work to start only after safe working procedures have been implemented. Provide a clear record that all reasonable foreseeable hazards have been considered and the necessary precautions taken. Provide a record that the work has been completed and the plant equipment or work area can be handed back for its normal use. ANSA McAL uses 4 types of permits to work. Confined space. A confined space is any enclosed area that has limited or restricted means of entry or exit. Though it may be large enough for an employee to enter and perform assigned work, it is not designed for continuous human occupancy. Isolation and lockout tagout. All energy sources which are potentially hazardous to confined space entrance shall be secured, relieved, disconnected, and/or restrained before personnel are permitted to enter the space. Energy sources may include electric, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, chemical, thermal. Company personnel, as necessary, shall verify that isolation and lockout tagout procedures have been executed for the confined space they will be entering. Lockout and tagout of equipment, systems, and processes shall be confirmed prior to permitting entry into the confined space. Electrical safety. The purpose of this policy is to reduce the risk of electric shock or other injuries resulting from either direct or indirect electrical contact when work is carried out near or on equipment or circuits which are or may be energized. Electrical safety principles. Plan every job. Use the right tools, including procedures, drawings, and other documents for the job. Isolate the equipment from energy sources. Identify the electric shock and arc flash, as well as other hazards that may be present. Minimize the hazard through limiting access and approach boundaries. Test every circuit, every conductor, every time before you touch. Use PPE as the last line of defense in case something goes wrong. Electrical safety work practices. Evaluate circuit information drawings. Determine degree and extent of hazards. Comply with minimum clearance when working around electrical power lines or other exposed conductors. Determine and employ the use of appropriate PPE based on the potential hazard. Follow lockout, tagout procedures. Use power tools that are double insulated or that have ground fault circuit interrupters protecting the circuit. Inspect all extension cords for wear and tear and make sure they are listed by a third-party testing laboratory. Never store flammable liquids near electrical equipment, even temporarily. Fall protection working at heights. The supervisor will be responsible for identifying fall hazards on the job site work area. The supervisor will evaluate each situation or work procedure where employees may be exposed to a fall of 6 feet or more, or 6 feet from an open edge hole. He or she will be responsible for developing a plan to eliminate the exposures, if possible, or to select the appropriate fall protection system and/or equipment. Minimum fall protection requirements. Personal fall arrest systems, full body harness with double locking shock absorbing lanyard greater than or equal to 6 feet above a lower level, and/or a guardrail system, and safety nets where applicable. Use of hard hats and either toe boards or screens or guardrails or canopies to protect against falling objects. When working on scaffolding, the top edge height of the top rails must be 42 inches plus or minus 3 inches. The mid rails must be 21 inches above the walking or working surface. Pedestrians and vehicle access should be limited under areas where overhead work is being performed by controlled access zones demarcated by a caution tape or an equivalent material. A safety monitoring system shall be implemented during the performance of leading edge work. Personal fall arrest system. A personal fall arrest system is a system used to arrest an employee in a fall from working level. It consists of an anchorage, connectors, and a body harness, and may include a lanyard, deceleration device, lifeline, or suitable combination of these. The system must be protected against cuts and abrasions, secured to a sound anchor point, capable of sustaining a load of 5,000 pounds and independent of any anchorage being used to support or suspended platforms, secured so that the users cannot free fall more than 6 feet, nor contact any lower level, protected from exposure to high temperatures, acids, and corrosives, rigged where the end of the lanyard with the shock absorber is connected to the harness, equipped with double locking shock absorbing lanyards, meet the applicable requirements of ANSI and ASTM, inspected monthly and visually inspected prior to each use, given to the supervisor immediately to be removed from service and destroyed once found to be defective. Scaffolding procedure. All scaffolds must be inspected by a competent person prior to each work shift. The scaffold should be tagged as approved or ready to use. The following practices must be observed. Ensure all connections, components are secure and not damaged, and there are no sharp edges, holes, cracks, or worn areas on the platform. Climb up and down the scaffold using the ladders, stairway, or ramps provided. Never climb the scaffolding structure. Never carry materials as you climb. Clear the platform of water or other slippery material before starting work. Stop all work during storms and high winds. Use tag lines to prevent contact with scaffold when cranes or swinging loads are being used. Never cross one platform to another unless they are appropriately joined together. Do not work on scaffold unless it is level, square, and rigid. Scaffold platforms must be planked all the way across. Do not use a scaffold if planks are bowing greater than 1/60 of their span. Scaffolds taller than 4 times the minimum base must be tied or braced to prevent tipping. Do not attempt to extend the platform while working at heights. Do not work on mobile scaffolds unless the casters are securely locked. Never ride on a mobile scaffold when they are being moved. Ladder safety procedures. When working from ladders above surfaces exposed to traffic, the area below must be barricaded. Ladders shall be placed away from unlocked or unprotected doors. The ladder must be placed on a substantial level base and secured or staked whenever possible. The ladder must be at an angle so that the base is 1 foot out away from the stationary support for every 4 feet of ladder working length. 4-to-1 rule. The top support point must be rigid and have adequate strength for the applied load. The top of the ladder must be placed so that both rails are fully supported and secured at the top with the safety chain or rope if practicable. The ladder rails shall be extended at least 3 feet above the support point. Personnel should not use the top 2 steps of a step ladder or the top 4 rungs of a straight extension ladder. When climbing the ladder, individuals must face the ladder and use both hands while ascending or descending. Tools must not be carried up or down the ladder unless they are being hoisted or lowered. Only one individual at a time should stand on or climb the ladder. Never transfer from one ladder to another. When working on a ladder at an elevation of 6 feet or more above the ground, a fall protection device is required. To eliminate potential electrical hazards, metal ladders must not be used near power lines or electrical energy sources.
Materials handling. The movement of materials is accomplished either manually or with the aid of a mechanical device. Associated hazards to personnel include strains, cuts, overexertion, broken bones, and falls. Employees must always be alert for potential hazards when performing materials handling tasks on scaffolding. The following precautions must be observed when handling materials on the scaffolding. Materials should be stacked at a height as low as possible so as to not fall over the top of the toe board. Materials should be stacked towards the center of the scaffold. Platforms and walkways must be kept clear of debris and clutter to prevent a tripping hazard. Containers must be used to hold small objects whenever possible. Materials should be inspected for sharp edges, loose items, etc. prior to movement. Proper lifting techniques should be used at all times. Appropriate PPE must be worn at all times. Materials must not be carried up or down the scaffold ladder at any time. The hoist system must be used. Lockout-tagout procedure. This program establishes the requirements for using the lockout-tagout procedure for isolation of both kinetic and potential, electrical, chemical, thermal, hydraulic, pneumatic, and gravitational energy prior to equipment isolation, repair, adjustment, or removal. Lockout-tagout is accomplished by placing a lock and/or warning tag on a switch, valve, or breaker to prevent reactivation of the equipment and to warn that maintenance activities are in progress or that the equipment is not suitable for safe operation. Equipment is considered locked out when the flow of hazardous energy has been blocked and the operation of the equipment is prevented until the lockout device is removed. Equipment is considered tagged out when a warning tag is placed on the equipment, warning others that the equipment is being serviced and or must not be operated. These safety measures must be used together to provide the maximum level of protection for those performing the service. Typical tasks requiring lockout-tagout procedures include, but are not limited to, the following: removing or bypassing a safety device or guard, an employee placing any part of his or her body into an area on a piece of equipment where an associated danger zone exists during a machine operation cycle, repairing electrical circuits, cleaning, repairing, and maintaining machinery with moving parts, cleaning jammed mechanisms. Compressed gas cylinders. Cylinders shall always be secured by rope or chain when in an upright position. The protective cap shall always be in place. All cylinders that are not in an upright position shall be blocked or secured to prevent rolling or movement. A cylinder must never be allowed to be knocked about during handling, loading, or unloading. Oxygen cylinders shall be stored separate from cylinders containing flammable materials. Cylinders shall be protected and kept away from flames or other heat sources. Compressed air must not be used for any other purpose than that for which it is intended. Example, directed at oneself to blow off dust from clothes or hair or horse playing. Compressed air tool, hose, and fittings must be inspected to ensure that they are working properly. When connecting a tool to an air line, keep a firm hold on the tool in case it whips. Before changing tools, make sure that the supply line is closed or has an automatic shut-off valve. Always stop flow through a hose by use of a valve. Never kink the hose. Do not leave hoses lying around. This creates a tripping hazard. Simultaneous operations, SIMOPs, or multi-occupancy jobs. SIMOPs refer to two or more potentially clashing operations occurring at the same time in the same place. In such cases, permits to work must take this into account. A kickoff meeting with all parties needs to be held before work is initiated. At this time, the scope of work and operations will be fully discussed and risk assessed. The following guidelines must be followed. Constraints and hazards must be identified. A checklist of mitigating measures must be created. Interfaces must be documented. Specific roles and responsibilities, description of the operations, procedures and controls, risks and mitigation, monitoring mechanisms, contingency plans, change controls, communication plan. SIMOPs are managed through the Permit to Work system, with the interface documents being a crucial part of the permit. Upon completion of work, there will be a formal closeout process. This presents the opportunity to capture any lessons learned. Lab safety. If you are required to work in any of ANSA McAL's laboratory, you are expected to follow the lab's safety policies. These policies exist to ensure proper control of the hazards and risk present in the laboratory environment that can result in employee injury and or damage to company property. The policy applies to all laboratory personnel as well as other employees or contractors who may have cause to enter the laboratory. Work practices include, but are not limited to: wash hands often to remove contaminants before eating, applying makeup, or using the phone. Proper laboratory attire must be worn at all times. Consumption of food in the lab or the preparation of food using lab equipment is prohibited. Never attempt to taste chemicals. Avoid touching chemicals with bare hands. Always use gloves. Work under a fume hood when performing chemical reactions that give off dangerous gases. Store chemicals according to compatibilities at all times. Outdated, expired, and unknown chemicals must be promptly disposed of. Glass bottles must be stored in cabinets or on shelves, not on the floor. All hazardous waste containers must be marked hazardous waste. Prominent signs and labels of the following types should be posted in adjacent to laboratories. Phone numbers of emergency personnel, facilities personnel, supervisors, and lab workers. Location signs for safety showers, eye wash stations, fire extinguishers, other safety and first aid equipment and exits. Warning signs at areas or equipment where special or unusual hazards exist.
Warehouse and forklift safety. When loading and offloading trucks, care must be taken in handling material and ensuring that the load is secure before the truck moves off. Keep a safe distance from vehicles and containers when they are reversing into buildings or driving alongside platforms. Workers must guard against shifting of materials when working around loads. Workers are expected to be neat and orderly in their work habits. Materials or goods should be stacked properly and safely to prevent items from falling. Lifts or pallet trucks should never be overloaded. All aisles should be kept clear. Contractors must never lift more than they can easily handle and should practice safe lifting techniques, standing properly when lifting, keeping the back erect, and lifting the legs slightly apart. When handling material, employees must obey all instructions written on packages, such as this side up, handle with care, or fragile. When offloading chemicals, employees must pay attention to the safety data sheets. Handling of drums. Empty drums can be stacked horizontally or vertically. Drums must not be stacked vertically in unsheltered areas, since the top of an upright drum can collect water and accelerate corrosion. Use pallets for vertical stacking. For horizontal stacking of empty drums, the drums must be nested in the form of a pyramid with the bottom row on runners to keep clear of the ground, with wedges inserted firmly at the end of each row. When unstacking, never break down stacks of empty drums by allowing the drums to free fall or roll to the ground. Use wooden skids, roll the drums down, and control by hand. Do not free fall drums to the ground. Handling of pallets. Pallets must be kept in good condition. Damaged pallets must either be repaired or destroyed. Idle pallets constitute a falling and tripping hazard and should be removed immediately. Pallets must be stacked neatly in designated areas. Forklifts. Forklift operators must not brake and then accelerate suddenly. This may project the load forward or backward. Travel with the load tilted forward. This reduces the capacity of the truck and the load may also slip forward. Overload the machine. The rated capacity of a truck can be found on the nameplate. Carry unstable or unevenly distributed loads or allow the forks to project from the front of the load. Park the machine with raised forks. This can cause a tripping hazard. Turn on an incline to reduce the possibility of a tip over. A lift truck must not be driven across an incline. Use a lift truck to perform work other than the work it was designed to perform. Forklift operators are expected to obey all traffic signs and signals, no horseplay is allowed, drive backwards down slopes, exercise special care at blind corners and doorways, make use of the horn to alert pedestrians. Report any defects noted on the truck to the supervisor immediately. Drivers must not perform repairs or adjustments. Lifting operations. Lifting operations relate to any activity involving the lifting or lowering of a load. A load is an item that needs to be lifted or lowered, including people. Lifting equipment is defined as any equipment whose principal purpose is to lift or lower loads. This includes any attachments used for anchoring or fixing or supporting the load. Portable electronic devices. Portable electronic devices means a privately owned wireless and/or portable electronic handheld equipment such as phone, iPad, or tablet. While at work, workers are prohibited from using electronic portable devices. Hazard communication. The purpose of this policy is to ensure all contractors working for the ANSA McAL group makes all reasonable efforts to provide information about health and safety hazards to workers, identify and correct health and safety hazards and encourage workers to report hazards, provide information and safeguards for those on the group's premises and in the surrounding communities regarding environmental hazards arising from our operations. This policy has been developed to communicate information about the hazards associated with substances that workers may use or come in contact with as part of their job. Components of this policy include adequate labeling of hazardous substances in the workplace, providing information such as safety data sheets for hazardous substances, and training workers on chemical hazards. Chemical spills. Always wear PPE and protect against spills. If a spill gets on your body, wash it off immediately under the nearest safety shower and remove contaminated clothing. A spill on your hand or arm should be washed off in the sink immediately. Large spills on a bench top should be immediately cleaned up using the appropriate disposal method and spill kit. Office safety. All new employees, visitors, and contractors are provided with a safety awareness orientation prior to the commencement of any job. This includes permanent, temporary, casual, interns, and contract employees. The orientation provided will be site-specific and will be appropriate for the new job assignment. Fire protection and suppression systems. Proper fire protection originates with minimizing the potential for fires and explosions. Workers should be trained in proper procedures for recognizing situations that could result in a fire and trained to act immediately to eliminate the hazard in a safe manner. Fire extinguishers are placed at appropriate strategic locations throughout the group's properties. In consultation with the HSE professional, security and facilities manager, managers, and supervisors are to ensure that extinguishers are properly secured, inspected, and maintained. A fire suppression system is available on every floor and may be used by trained personnel to extinguish a fire in an emergency situation. At no time is anyone allowed to block or even partially block an emergency equipment or exit. You must report all problems with any emergency equipment immediately to the supervisor. Contractors may be required to furnish their own emergency response equipment, like a fire extinguisher and first aid kit. Housekeeping. Housekeeping refers to the act of maintaining a clean and clutter-free environment. Good housekeeping is one of the foundations of safety. Many serious accidents result from tripping, slipping, and falling over materials and equipment which are poorly stored or placed on access routes or in a hazardous manner. Good housekeeping requires the proper maintenance of the company's site and any other accommodation in a clean, tidy, safe, and hygienic manner. Who is responsible for housekeeping? Housekeeping is the contractor's responsibility. The job at the site must always be clean and orderly. Flammable and combustible waste must be removed from the premises at the end of each working day, if the ANSA McAL Limited representative so requires. Sewers, ditches, trenches, and waterways are not to be used for disposal of waste. Dumpsters and other normal rubbish receptacles may be used only with the permission of the ANSA McAL representative. Should a contractor fail to remove rubbish, etc., such removal will be done by ANSA McAL at the contractor's expense. At the end of the workday, the job site must be left in an acceptable condition. The ANSA McAL rep will make a final inspection and determine the adequacy of the final cleanup. What are some of the benefits of good housekeeping? Reduce handling to ease the flow of materials. Fewer tripping and slipping incidents in a clutter-free and spill-free work area. Decreased fire hazards. Lower worker exposures to hazardous products, example dust and vapors. better control of tools and materials, including inventory and supplies, more efficient equipment cleanup and maintenance, better hygienic conditions leading to improved health, more effective use of space, reduce property damage by improving preventative maintenance, improve morale, improve productivity, tools and materials will be easy to find. What can be the results of poor housekeeping? Tripping over loose objects on the floor and stairs or platforms, being hit by falling objects, slipping on greasy, wet, or dirty surfaces, striking against projecting, poorly stacked items, or misplaced materials, cutting, puncturing, or tearing the skin of hands and other parts of the body on projecting nails, wire, and steel scraps. To avoid these hazards, a workplace must maintain order throughout the day. Although this effort requires a great deal of management and planning, the benefits are many. Security. Every compound has a security department, and upon entry to all ANSA McAL's compounds, you must stop at the security and state the nature of your business. Upon entering and moving within ANSA McAL's facilities, there is a speed limit which you must always obey. Parking is in designated parking areas only unless your work is authorized in a specific area where parking must be done with caution. Reverse parking is required. Unlawful removal of property is not tolerated. Security has the right and is expected to search all contractors' vehicles and personnel, including personal belongings. All sites have a gate pass system, which means that you must declare equipment prior to entering, and when removing ANSA McAL's equipment, you must complete a gate pass. All of ANSA McAL's compounds are authorized personnel only, and we do not permit anyone under the age of 18 to conduct any type of work. Following our safety rules and regulations will ensure that you have a productive work experience. If you have any further questions, please contact the HSE department's representative at the specific location you are working at. Thank you.